What's going on, everyday people, and welcome to Chadeveryday. Today I'm going to teach you guys how to go from a dull looking boring photo like this to something a little bit more exciting and atmospheric like this. Alright, so let's go back to our original image, the one that we are going to be editing. I have a reference photo here that I'm going to try to achieve similar results, if not make it look a little bit better. So let's go to our original and let's open up our reference photo here. Let's do YY so that way we can see what we want to make the image look like versus what we're working with now. So what we're going to do is hop right over and get started. I'm going to pull my contrast up to probably between 10 and 15 just to add a little bit more contrast to the image. We're going to add a little bit of clarity to the image, and that's it. That's all we're going to do in that section for right now. So in our tonal curve, go ahead and create a marker around the highlights, and then I'm also going to create one down around the shadows. Now the 2 points, the anchor points here in the highlights and shadows, just double click those and it's going to lock it down in these sections, and then we're going to kind of manipulate that from there, because obviously this looks a little bit too much, so we're going to take a little bit away and kind of make it look a little bit more natural, kind of keeping it right here on the line. Maybe pull it back a little bit to get some of those darker areas. And then the same deal with the highlights. We're going to put some of that detail back and get it all nice and set up. So now that the tonal curve is kind of set where we want it, we'll go back and edit it here in a minute. Let's go all the way down to the very bottom to camera calibration. Now to get this kind of a look, all you got to do is 2 simple little things. In the blue primary hue section, -100. The image looks terrible. I understand, but we're going to fix that. So with the red primaries, we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to go the opposite direction and go to about 40%. So the image is starting to look a little bit better, but it's still not where our reference photo is. So what we're going to do is hop back up to our HSL sliders. That is our hue, our saturation, and our luminance. So what we want to do here in the hue section, we want to try to get rid of some of these greens and kind of adjust those slightly. So you can see what's doing here. If we push the yellow more towards the green, you get a bit brighter, vibrant green out of the leaves. And I don't want that for this image, because I want more concentration to be on the model here, not so much the greenery that's all around her. So you can play around with some of these other sliders and kind of see what kind of a look you're getting. Obviously, if we push this orange up just a little bit, it's becoming a little bit more natural. And then if we take this red and adjust it, if we go too far to the red, it really ruins our skin tones. If we go up this way, it's getting too yellow. So we're going to kind of leave that alone for right now. Now in the saturation section, there is an extreme push of orange right now. Part of that's because of her dress and then the skin tones going on. So we're going to pull the orange down, and you can see if we do it completely, we get this desaturated look, which isn't the most pleasant thing in the world. But if we pull it down to about 37%, and also do the same with the yellows, you can see what's changing here with the yellows. It's more about the greenery, but there is a little bit of detail in her as well. So let's pull that down. Now there is a little bit of a blue tint up here in the skies, so let's go ahead and mess with the aqua and the blue. It's nothing too huge or noticeable, but you could see in this reference photo there is a little bit of aqua and blue up in the sky that kind of adds a little bit of distinction within the background, so we're going to mess with that just a little. Now the luminance, I'm actually going to pull the red luminance down for this image just ever so slightly, because you'll notice there's a little bit of a heavy highlight on her face, and if we pull that luminance down, it's going to help with that a little bit. Now with the orange, we can pull it down just slightly right in there. And then the yellow, let's see where our luminance is. We want a little bit to stay on the leaves so they don't become fully disengaged from the image, but we don't want them to be so much that they're popping out above everything. So let's just go ahead and pull that down just slightly. And then let's play with our greens. We don't have much in there. And the blues and everything, not much in there. Okay, so we've got a pretty similar edit to our original. I like this one a little bit better because it's a little bit more contrasty. Let's go ahead and pull the highlights down so we can see more detail in our model's dress. You can see in this reference photo, there's really no detail whatsoever because the highlights were too strong, whereas in this photo, it looks a little better. So what we're going to do at this point is click on Photo, edit in Photoshop CC 2017, and it's going to pull our photo with all of our edits straight over into Photoshop where we can finish this edit. So now we have our image here. And what I want you to do is hit Command J to recreate your background layer and make an extra copy. And we're just going to call this BG copy. That's all we're going to do. Now I want you to create a new blank layer by clicking this icon down here. And we're just going to name this smoke. Okay. So what you want to do, if you don't already have some smoke brushes installed into Photoshop, just do a quick Google search for free smoke brushes or something to that extent. Get you a nice size smoke brush and you're ready to go for the next step. So what I do on my color palette is I choose a color tone that's somewhere between white and a lighter gray. And that's it. That's pretty much all you got to do. And then all I'm going to do is simply take my smoke brush here and just kind of paint in a couple areas of smoke. Now we're going to fix this so it looks a little bit more natural, because obviously this here, it just looks like literally photoshopped on a bunch of smoke. So the next step you need to do is to go to Edit and go to Perspective Warp. Now what I like to do with the perspective warp is kind of figure out where I want my perspective lines to be, and I actually want it to be somewhat around the base of this tree. So I'm going to find about where I want it to be, so maybe somewhere right in here. And I'm going to go to the edge of my image and I'm just going to paint a box around the overall image just like so. Now what we need to do is define our perspective. So I want my perspective to be somewhere along these lines. And so now my perspective is going to be pushing back towards the model, but also we still have our concentration line. So after you get your perspective about where you want it to be, I'm just going to pull this down just a little bit more. We're just going to hit enter to accept that. Now is when we really get to play with the perspective of this smoke. So what we're going to do is play with these lines that we just built, and we're going to pull that smoke down and force it more to the ground level. And make sure that it's attached to both of the sides of the image here so it doesn't have that fine edge. And then we're just going to click enter, and then bam. Now we have some smoke added to the image that looks a little bit more natural. Now it looks like a low-laying ground fog, but it's a little bit unbelievable. So what we can do is play around with our blend modes, such as soft light, which obviously is doing nothing. We could try to do something with screen, or whatever works for your particular image. These different blend modes are going to work a little bit differently depending on your lighting and what kind of editing that you actually did. So I'm going to pull my opacity down. We're going to try 75% to start. So 75 is a little bit not quite enough for me, so let's go ahead and pull it up to about 84%. Might play around with some more blend modes to see what happens here. Obviously multiply is not going to work, and we might just leave it the same. But for the most part, guys, that's really all you got to do. You can play around with this some more, really take your time putting the smoke in there, play around with your perspective a little bit more to kind of get it really toned in there, and you can actually add more layers. So you could change the colors of the smoke to maybe be a little bit darker of a gray, and make smoke layer 2, and then add in some gray tones of smoke, and you can even change the size of your brush down so that way the patterns don't fit quite as much. Maybe I'm going a little bit too small, but then you can add in a little bit of gray, and then you could change the opacity of that to say 50%, and then do the same thing, and then select your area, and we're basically recreating the same process. So let's go ahead and put our perspective down to here, maybe a little bit right here, click enter, and then we're just going to pull that smoke down so that it kind of fits where we want it to. And you just got to be careful with your lines here to make sure that your lines don't do any kind of overlapping. Hit enter on that, and you're done. That's pretty much the image. So now at this point, all you'd want to do is just save it, export that image, upload it to your Instagram or anywhere else you would like to see that. And just for total reference, here was the image that we came up with in the original edit. But guys, hope you enjoyed this video today. Hopefully it sparked your creativity to do something new with your images that you may have never done before. This was a super simple, straight to the point tutorial to kind of teach you a new perspective on how to edit photos and add in a little bit of that manipulation just for fun, for art, or anything else. But guys, that's what we're going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed this tutorial, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, be sure to create something new today.